My name is Amber Wilson. I'm 32, a mother, a wife, and a woman who believed she was holding everything together. That belief shattered the day I came home early from a business trip and found my daughter on her hands and knees scrubbing the kitchen floor alone. There's no manual for that moment. Nothing in parenting books, no motivational speech, no blog post that prepares you for walking into your home and seeing your 8-year-old child with raw red palms scrubbing away like she's some kind of maid, tears drying on her cheeks. You think you'd scream. You think you'd drop your bags and rush in. But me, I froze. I stood in the doorway, paralyzed by disbelief, while the question repeated in my mind, how did it get to this? Let me start from the beginning. I'm a digital marketing manager, career-driven, yes, but Madison has always been my center. My purpose. People say you can't have it all, but I've tried to find balance. There are days when I hit deadlines and make dinner. Other days, I cry in my car during lunch breaks because I feel like I'm failing at everything. But through it all, Madison has been my heartbeat. Madison isn't my biological daughter. She became mine through tragedy. My cousin Stephanie, my childhood best friend, my sister in all but blood, died in a horrific car accident, along with her husband. Their daughter, just 2 years old at the time, was suddenly left without parents. I was 24, single, terrified, but I knew what I had to do. I stepped up. Adoption wasn't just a legal process, it was a spiritual one. I wasn't just signing papers. I was pledging my life to her. Madison didn't grow beneath my heart, but she grew in it. Years later, I met Scott Henderson. It was at a barbecue, the kind where paper plates are flimsy and kids run barefoot across damp grass. Madison was 2.5 curly hair, sticky hands, and the kind of smile that could convince anyone to give her 2 popsicles. Scott saw her before he saw me. From that day, he wasn't just a boyfriend to me. He was a playmate, a storyteller, a builder of blanket forts and bad jokes. He never treated Madison like a tag-along. He treated her like magic. When he proposed, he knelt with 2 boxes, one with a ring for me, and another with a little heart-shaped necklace for Madison. "I'm not just asking you," he said. "I'm asking both of you to be my family." A year later, he legally adopted her. On paper and in practice, we were a family, and for a while, it was beautiful, even with the usual chaos. School drop-offs, late-night fevers, birthday cakes that never rose quite right. We were a team. Until we weren't. Until his parents got involved. Scott's parents, Robert and Eleanor Henderson, were polite at first. Reserved maybe, but kind enough. They brought Madison gifts at holidays. They smiled at her. They said all the right things. But if you looked closely, really looked, you'd notice the way their eyes lingered on their biological granddaughter, Lily, just a little longer. Lily is Scott's niece, his younger brother's daughter. Coincidentally, she and Madison are the same age. Just 8. Just kids. But in the Henderson household, the playing field was never level. At birthdays, Lily's gifts were shiny brand name extravagant. Madison's were generic, sometimes even secondhand. At family dinners, Eleanor would post photos on social media, always with Lily front and center. Madison sometimes cropped out. Sometimes not pictured at all. At first, I told myself it was accidental. Maybe they just had more time with Lily. Maybe Madison just needed to speak up more. But the more I justified, the deeper the hurt became. Madison noticed. Children always do. They don't miss much. "Why doesn't Grandma ever ask me to bake cookies?" she whispered one night, her voice small. "She always asks Lily." What do you say to that? How do you explain favoritism to an 8-year-old when it's disguised as politeness and passive omission? I tried to compensate: extra cuddles, special traditions, tiny rituals just for us. Scott tried too. To his credit, he confronted them after one particularly glaring Christmas. Lily got a tablet. Madison got coloring books. "They're both your granddaughters," he said. "They deserve equal love." They brushed it off. "You're overreacting," Robert said. "She's just more into tech, that's all. Madison likes arts and crafts." I wanted to believe them. I really did. Fast forward to a few months ago. I was invited to speak at a high-stakes conference in Chicago. A career moment, the kind you work years for. But the timing was terrible. Scott had been scheduled to stay with Madison, but at the last minute, a crisis hit at his office in Boston. We scrambled. Our sitter was unavailable. My mom was recovering from surgery in Arizona. And in that moment of pressure and practicality, Scott said the words, "I wish I could take back. My parents can do it. It's just 3 days." Every fiber in me hesitated. Every memory of Lily's special treatment, every glance, every comment came rushing back. But we were out of options. I wanted to believe that maybe some one-on-one time would help them bond. Maybe this could be a turning point. I agreed. I hugged Madison tight that morning. "Just be a kid, okay? No chores, no stress. I'll call every night." She nodded, brave and sweet. "I love you to the moon and back." And I left. That first night, she seemed fine on our video call. "Tired, but okay. Grandma made spaghetti," she said. She told me to pick up my toys twice because I was messy. The second night, I didn't get to talk to her. Robert answered. "She's tired. She'll call tomorrow." But she didn't. By the third day, my anxiety was louder than my ambition. The client had signed early, the final meetings were canceled. I booked a flight without telling anyone. I figured I'd surprise them, be the hero. The moment I landed, I texted Scott. "Coming home early." "Can't wait to see Madison," he replied quickly. "Still stuck in Boston. Love you both. Thanks for covering." I should have felt excited, but I didn't. I felt something colder, like a storm building in my chest. When I pulled into the driveway, their car wasn't there. I stood at the front door, bags in hand, the spring air deceptively peaceful. "Madison," I called as I stepped inside. Silence. The house was too quiet. Her stuffed bunny was on the floor. Unusual, she never let go of Mr. Flopsy. Then I heard it. A faint sniffle, the sound of scrubbing. My heels echoed as I ran toward the kitchen, heart pounding. And there she was, on her hands and knees, scrubbing the tile with a bucket beside her curls damp with sweat, her face blotched from crying, her small hands gripping a brush far too tightly. She didn't see me at first. She was too focused. "Madison," I whispered. She froze. The brush clattered. Her eyes widened in shock, then confusion. "Mommy," she said, voice trembling. And that's when everything changed. I dropped to my knees. I didn't care that my slacks soaked up the soapy water. I didn't care that I hadn't slept in 2 days. My daughter was trembling, and she was alone. "Sweetheart," I whispered, brushing back her damp curls. "What's going on?" She looked up at me with those wide brown eyes that had seen more than an 8-year-old ever should, and for a moment I saw something I never expected to see in her. Shame. "I spilled grape juice this morning," she said, her voice barely audible. "Grandma said I had to clean the whole floor. She said I needed to learn responsibility." The whole floor, I looked around. It wasn't a spot cleaning. It was a full kitchen scrubbing. Corners, grout. My daughter's tiny knees were red and raw. Her hands were wrinkled and stung from being submerged too long in cleaning solution. "Where are Grandma and Grandpa now?" Her eyes lowered. "They took Lily to Adventure World." I blinked. "The amusement park. They left you here alone." She nodded. I couldn't breathe. She said I couldn't go because I don't appreciate nice things. That Lily deserves treats because she's their real granddaughter. And there it was. The line I'd been afraid of for years. The confirmation that every cold glance, every withheld smile, every unequal gift wasn't imagined. It was real. They didn't see Madison as family. My daughter sat there drenched in soap and silence, waiting for punishment to end. Not theirs, hers. "How long have you been alone?" "Baby since after breakfast," she whispered. She said if the floor wasn't spotless by dinner, I wouldn't get dessert. I held her close, my anger simmering like lava under my skin. But I didn't show it, not to her. I couldn't. She needed my calm, my certainty, not my rage. "You are not in trouble," I said firmly. "You are not clumsy, and you are never less than anyone else." I helped her to her feet. She winced as her knees straightened. My heart cracked further. We went to the bathroom. I washed her hands and saw just how red they really were. Lotion helped a little, but she flinched. Still, she didn't cry. She'd done enough of that already. "Are you mad at me?" she asked quietly. "No, sweetheart. I'm furious, but not at you." We got her cleaned up and dressed in her favorite unicorn pajamas even though it was only 4 p.m. She needed comfort, not structure. Then I did the only thing that made sense in that moment. I took her for ice cream. There's something sacred about watching your child enjoy something small and sweet after a moment of deep pain. Her little fingers curled around a rainbow sherbet cone, her eyes cautious but curious. As she licked the melting scoops, she started to talk. Quietly, carefully. And I listened. Everything poured out. The 3 days she'd spent under their care had been a series of subtle and not-so-subtle slights. Lily got the special snacks, the better TV shows, the outings. Madison got chores, reprimands, cold glances. Grandma had told her she should be grateful that we took her in, that no one else had wanted her, that without us, she'd probably be in an orphanage. She said, "I'm lucky," Madison mumbled, but it didn't feel lucky. No, it wasn't. It was abuse. We went home. I ran a warm bubble bath. I made her grilled cheese with the crusts cut off. I played her favorite movie while she curled up beside me with Mr. Flopsy, and when she finally dozed off, I stood in the hallway clutching my phone with shaking fingers and dialed Scott. He picked up immediately. "Hey, everything okay?" "No," I said. "Everything's not okay." I told him everything, every last word, every bruise, every chore, every hour she was left alone. I kept my voice steady for as long as I could, until I couldn't. "She thinks she's lucky we didn't leave her in an orphanage, Scott. She thinks she's less." Silence on the other end. Then I'm flying home. Now. "What about Boston?" "Screw Boston," he snapped. "I'm coming home to my daughter." Those words, my daughter, landed like a balm on my broken heart. He wasn't just furious. He was done protecting their feelings at the expense of our child. We made a plan. I'd handle the immediate situation. Calmly, firmly. No screaming, no scenes in front of Madison. But they would be asked to leave. Tonight. As I hung up, I peeked into Madison's room. She was curled up with her bunny, her thumb resting against her lip, breathing steady. I made a silent promise in that moment. No one was going to make her feel unwanted again. I didn't care what it cost us. Because a child's sense of belonging is sacred, and it's my job to protect it, even if that means protecting her from family. I sat in the living room waiting. It was almost 5:30 p.m., dinner time in our house. Madison was upstairs tucked into her bed with Mr. Flopsy, and a promise that I would call her when it was time. I didn't want her witnessing what was coming. No child should have to be present when the adults in her life get confronted for failing her. And make no mistake, what Robert and Eleanor had done was failure. Neglect, emotional cruelty, and favoritism wrapped in the cloak of discipline and tradition. I had been preparing my words for hours, practicing in my head, repeating them in front of the mirror while Madison bathed. Every version started out calm but ended in fire. So I let myself burn silently while I waited for the sound I knew was coming. The car in the driveway, the click of the lock, the door swinging open. Laughter. That was the first thing I heard, laughter. Eleanor walked in first, bags from Adventure World swinging on her arm. Robert followed with Lily on his shoulders, still wearing a souvenir hat. None of them noticed me at first. I stood in the entryway watching them like I was watching strangers walk into the wrong house. Then I cleared my throat. Eleanor jumped. "Good heavens, Amber, you scared me. What are you doing home?" Robert's smile faded. "Where's Madison?" "She's upstairs," I said evenly. "Resting. After scrubbing the kitchen floor alone for 4 hours while you took Lily to an amusement park." The silence that followed was the kind that cracks open the air between people. Eleanor blinked, then frowned. "Oh, don't be so dramatic. She made a mess. She needed to learn responsibility." "Responsibility." I repeated, my voice still calm, though my fists were clenched by my sides. "You left an 8-year-old child alone all day to scrub a floor. You left her alone, Eleanor." Robert stepped forward. "Now, Amber, let's be reasonable." She had a tantrum over spilling juice. She needed quiet time to reflect. No. What she needed was an adult. Someone to guide her, not punish her. Someone to comfort her when she made a mistake, not make her question if she belongs in her own family. Eleanor's expression turned defensive. "Madison tends to twist things." She can be sensitive. You know that. I took a breath, the kind of breath you take when your whole body wants to scream. Sensitive children are the ones most harmed by neglect, by favoritism, by being told they don't have Henderson blood. Eleanor rolled her eyes. We've always been honest. She's adopted. She knows that. Honesty is not the same as cruelty, I said. You told her she should be grateful that we took her in, that no one else wanted her. Do you understand how dangerous that message is for a child? She should be grateful, Eleanor snapped. You did her a favor. That was it. The line. The final straw. No, I said, my voice no longer calm. We didn't do her a favor. She is our daughter, and we are the lucky ones. Robert looked uncomfortable. Eleanor looked offended. We've raised children before, she muttered. We know how to instill discipline. Discipline is not neglect, I said. Discipline is not favoritism. Discipline is not gaslighting a child into thinking she is second best. My phone buzzed. It was Scott. I answered, put him on speaker. Hey, I said quietly. They're here. His voice came through sharp and angry. You left Madison alone. Eleanor blinked. Scott, we were teaching her a lesson. You abandoned her, Scott said. And that's not parenting. That's neglect. She spilled juice. She's 8, and you punished her by removing her from the family experience. You took Lily to an amusement park and left Madison behind to scrub floors. Eleanor's voice was rising. She has to learn to behave properly if she wants to be treated equally. That's the problem, I snapped. She wasn't treated equally from the beginning. Not for the past 3 days, and honestly, not for the past 3 years. Robert tried to de-escalate. Let's not blow this out of proportion. She has bruises on her knees, I said. Her hands are raw, and she's scared. Do you understand what you've done? There was silence, thick, tense. Scott's voice was cold. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to pack your things and leave our house tonight. You will not be staying here again, and you will not have unsupervised contact with Madison. Eleanor's voice cracked. You're choosing her over your own parents. I'm choosing my daughter, Scott said. Always. They sputtered. Eleanor called me controlling. Robert asked to at least say goodbye. No, I said. You don't get to cause harm and then demand comfort. Madison is resting, and you're leaving. They gathered their things in silence. Lily watched confused and sad. I bent down to her level. This isn't about you, sweetheart, I said gently. You've done nothing wrong. As they walked out, Eleanor turned back. We always thought Scott could do better. I smiled. Not sarcastic, not bitter. Just done. Funny, I said. I was just thinking the same thing. About grandparents. And then I closed the door behind them. I locked it, and I breathed. The house felt quieter after they left. Not peaceful, not yet. But quieter, like the air had shifted, like the weight that had been pressing on the walls had finally lifted. I stood there for a moment, leaning against the door, my palms flat on the wood, grounding myself. Then I turned and climbed the stairs, one slow step at a time, until I reached Madison's room. She was sitting up in bed, holding Mr. Flopsy, her little face tight with worry. Did Grandma and Grandpa leave because of me? She asked. I sat down beside her, brushing the hair away from her forehead. No, baby. They left because of them. Because of the way they treated you. This was not your fault. She looked unconvinced. But they were mad. They weren't mad at you. They were upset that we told them the truth, that how they acted was wrong and that it won't be allowed anymore. Will they come back? I hesitated. Not to stay with us, I said gently. But maybe one day, if they learn how to treat you with kindness and respect, we'll see them again for short visits. With us there. She nodded, but I could see her shoulders stay tight, her lips pressed into a worried line. This wasn't over for her. This wasn't a closed door. It was a wound that would take time to heal. Is Daddy coming home? She asked. Yes, I said with a small smile. He's already on his way. He can't wait to see you. That seemed to soothe her a little. She nestled down into her blanket and closed her eyes. Within minutes she was asleep. And I sat there watching her chest rise and fall, listening to her soft breathing and promising myself all over again, she will always be safe with me. Always. Scott got home after midnight. He looked exhausted. Wrinkled shirt, unshaven face, red eyes, but the moment he stepped into the house and saw me waiting, he dropped his bag and wrapped me in the tightest embrace. And for the first time all day, I cried. Not in anger, not in fear, just in release. "I can't believe they did that," he whispered. "My parents, how could they treat her that way?" We sat at the kitchen table, that kitchen floor, now a symbol of everything that had broken, and I told him everything. I didn't leave anything out. Not her red knees, not the things she said, not the way she flinched when she thought she was in trouble. He listened in silence. The more I spoke, the paler his face became. His hands clenched, his jaw tightened. And when I finished, he just sat there for a long time, staring at nothing. "I knew they favored Lily," he said finally. "I knew it, but I didn't know it was this bad." I reached for his hand. "You're not responsible for their actions." "No," he said, "but I am responsible for my daughter, and I failed her." "No," I repeated, firmer this time. You didn't know, but now that you do, you acted. You dropped everything to be here. You stood up to them. You protected her. That's what matters." He nodded slowly. I can't stop thinking, what if you hadn't come home early? What if she'd stayed with them another night, another day? The silence between us spoke the answer we didn't want to say. That morning, when Madison woke up and saw Scott, she flew into his arms like a bird who had finally found her nest again. She held on tight, and he did too. I watched them for a long time, letting that moment rewrite some of the pain. Later, over pancakes, we had a family meeting. We kept the language simple, honest, gentle. "Grandma and Grandpa made some very bad choices," Scott explained, holding Madison's hand. "And when adults make bad choices that hurt kids, there are consequences." "Like when I get a time out?" Madison asked. "Yes," I said. "Similar. Except this one is much longer. And it means they won't be allowed to spend time with you unless one of us is there." "Are they mad at me?" "No, sweetheart," Scott said. "They're probably mad at the situation. But none of this is your fault. Nothing you did caused this. Nothing you ever did would make you deserve the way they treated you." She nodded slowly, but I could see she still wasn't fully convinced. And I knew then we needed help. We needed more than love. We needed support, structure, healing. That's when I began researching child therapists. Later that day, while Madison was watching a movie in the living room, Scott and I sat together and made the calls. We found someone who specialized in adoption and family trauma. Someone who understood what Madison had experienced wasn't just disappointment, it was betrayal. And betrayal at that age imprints. I knew therapy couldn't erase what happened, but it could teach her that her pain had a voice, that her feelings mattered, that she wasn't alone. That night, as I tucked her in again, she asked, "Will Grandma ever say, 'Sorry, I don't know'?" I answered honestly, "I hope so. But even if she doesn't, you don't need her apology to know that you're loved, that you're safe, that you're exactly where you belong." She smiled faintly. "With you and Daddy." "Yes, baby," I whispered, kissing her forehead. "Always with us." I turned off the light and stood in the doorway watching her fall asleep with Mr. Flopsy in her arms. She was still a little girl, but she was already so strong. And now it was our turn to be strong for her. The next day, everything escalated. Word had gotten out. Not just within our household, but through the family grapevine. Scott's parents had wasted no time painting themselves as victims. Misunderstood, unappreciated. They'd called his aunts, his cousins, even his childhood godmother, telling everyone that we had overreacted, that we were keeping their granddaughter from them. But they left out the part where they abandoned a child for hours. They didn't mention the scrubbing, the bruises, the whispered fear in Madison's voice. Soon we were fielding phone calls from relatives who hadn't even met Madison but had strong opinions nonetheless. They just wanted to treat Lily to a special day, one aunt said on speakerphone. Can't you understand that I understand that Madison was locked in emotional exile? I replied. They didn't treat her like a granddaughter. They treated her like a mistake. You're making a scene, and Uncle said you could have handled this privately. We did handle it privately, Scott shot back. They're the ones who broadcasted it. It's strange how many people will defend the abuser to preserve the illusion of family peace. But I wasn't interested in peace anymore. I was interested in truth. Then, something unexpected happened. A voice cut through the fog of defense and denial. Scott's younger brother, Michael. He called us one night long after Lily had gone to bed. He sounded different from the others, slower, more careful. Scott, he said, Lily's been confused. She keeps asking why she hasn't seen Madison. She said Grandma told her Madison was being punished. I wanted to hear your side. Scott told him everything. No exaggeration, no spin, just the facts. The silence afterward stretched for so long I thought the call had dropped. Then Michael sighed. Jesus, I believe you. Lily did mention something about Madison cleaning while she got to play. I didn't think much of it at the time, but now it makes sense. And in that moment, we gained an ally. Michael didn't just listen, he acted. He pushed back against the family narrative. He defended Madison, and most importantly, he helped maintain the one bond we didn't want Madison to lose her friendship with Lily. They began having regular video calls again, supervised at first. Two cousins laughing about school silly YouTube videos and unicorn headbands. It was healing, innocent, pure. Proof that the problem had never been with the children. It had always been the adults. Meanwhile, Scott and I began therapy sessions with a family counselor, Dr. Lorraine Carter. She was direct, compassionate, and specialized in adoptive family dynamics. In our first session, she asked Madison gently, "How did it feel when Grandma said you weren't part of the family?" Madison clutching Mr. Flopsy whispered, like I was a stray dog. Like someone gave me a bed but didn't really want me there. My heart shattered. Scott wiped his eyes with his sleeve. Dr. Carter didn't flinch. That's a very real feeling, Madison, and you're very brave for sharing it. But I want you to know you are not a stray. You are wanted, deeply, fully, forever. Over time, Madison began to open up more. Slowly, carefully. She talked about how she noticed the different meals, the unequal gifts, the way Lily's name was always said, with more sweetness. I used to think, she said one day, that maybe I wasn't good enough to be a Henderson. You are more than enough, Scott said, pulling her into his arms. You're mine, and you always will be. Therapy wasn't easy. It surfaced old hurts, forced us to confront blind spots. But it was necessary. Healing always requires honesty. Eventually, we received a call from Dr. Carter's office. Robert and Eleanor had reached out. They wanted to be part of a family session. They said they wanted to apologize. Scott and I were cautious, but we agreed. The session was scheduled a few weeks later. A neutral space. Everyone seated in a small round room with soft lighting and a quiet clock ticking in the background. Eleanor looked older. Her eyes were tired, her hands ringing nervously in her lap. Robert sat beside her, his posture stiff. Madison sat between us, guarded but composed. Dr. Carter opened the floor. Eleanor spoke first. I owe you an apology, she said, looking at Madison directly. What we did was wrong. We treated you unfairly. We made you feel like you didn't belong. And I am deeply sorry for that. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Then Robert added, You're part of this family, Madison. You always were? We were just too stubborn to see it. There was a pause. And then Madison, my brave, beautiful daughter, asked the question only a child would be honest enough to ask. Why did you do it? Eleanor's voice cracked. Because I didn't know any better. Because I thought blood mattered more. But I was wrong. It wasn't a fairy tale moment. There were no hugs, no tears of reconciliation. Just words. Truth. A quiet beginning. But beginnings matter, especially the hard ones. From that session forward, something changed, not all at once, and not always smoothly, but it changed. Eleanor began individual therapy, something I never imagined she'd agree to. Robert, ever the quieter one, started asking Madison about her favorite books instead of defaulting to Lily's interests. Their language became more careful, their tone less dismissive, and while skepticism lingered in my heart, I couldn't deny the effort was real. What surprised me most was Madison's response. She didn't forget. She didn't pretend everything was fine. But she forgave little by little, because children, when shown consistent love and safety, are remarkably resilient. Her laughter returned, her confidence grew. One day, a few months later, we were packing for a picnic, and she turned to me with a thoughtful look. "Mommy, am I a real Henderson now?" I stopped mid-fold, looked her in the eyes, and said, "Sweetheart, you've always been a Henderson, and a Wilson, and more importantly, you're Madison. And being you is the most real thing in the world." She smiled and went back to stuffing juice boxes into the cooler like I'd just confirmed something sacred. And maybe I had. We slowly reintroduced Robert and Eleanor into her life, but on our terms. Short, supervised visits. No overnight stays. Boundaries were clear. Consequences understood. There were no more accidental exclusions, no more favoritism. Madison's voice was heard in every decision. If she wasn't comfortable, the visit didn't happen. Lily, sweet as ever, remained a constant friend. The two girls rediscovered each other on neutral ground without the influence of grandparents treating them like a competition. They laughed more, played longer, and yes, occasionally argued like all cousins do. But it was real now, honest. One afternoon after a visit to the park, Madison turned to me in the car and said something I'll never forget. I used to think they didn't love me because I was adopted, but now I think maybe they just didn't know how, and now they're learning. That's when I realized the story wasn't just about what happened to her. It was about what she was becoming because of it. A few months later, we hosted her 9th birthday party. Friends, teachers, neighbors, and yes, even Robert and Eleanor were invited. They brought a modest gift, nothing extravagant, nothing performative, just thoughtful. And Madison thanked them politely. No tension, no need for her to shrink or second-guess her worth. I watched her that day glowing with joy, laughing with Lily being celebrated not despite her story, but because of it. I realized then that the most powerful thing we'd done wasn't drawing a line in the sand. It was rewriting the script for what family means. See, blood doesn't guarantee love. Proximity doesn't guarantee safety. Tradition doesn't guarantee truth. Family is a verb. It's an action. It's how you show up when it counts. And if you're watching this holding on to the belief that you have to accept mistreatment in the name of keeping the peace, I hope our story gives you the permission you've been waiting for, to speak up, to set boundaries, to protect your children when no one else will. Yes, you may be called dramatic, overreacting, even cruel, but I promise you nothing is more cruel than allowing a child to feel like a second-class member of their own family. So if you're a parent, whether by blood adoption, marriage, or choice, let me say this. You are the gatekeeper of your child's emotional world. Don't be afraid to close the door on people who knock with judgment instead of love. Today, Madison is thriving. She sleeps soundly. She speaks up for herself. And when she talks about her family, she says, "My mom and dad love me no matter what." And that right there is everything. Because she doesn't just believe it now. She knows it. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button, subscribe for more real-life stories about family motherhood and choosing love over obligation, and share this with someone who might need to hear it today. And remember, being family isn't about blood. It's about showing up again and again and again until the child knows without question they are safe, seen, and unconditionally loved. Thank you for listening. You are not alone. And neither is your child. If you found this video meaningful and inspiring, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to support the channel.